All right, everybody, it's time once again for Survival of the Fittest is the soup du jour. I'm Chef Roberto Trevino, and today I've been thinking about the restaurant business as far as where it really kind of all came from. And I think about some of the really good old restaurants in America, like the Union Oyster House, like the Brown Derby, like the Stork Club. Let's see, Joe's Stone Crab, been around forever. Antoine's in New Orleans. I mean, and of course the Commander's Palace in New Orleans as well. You know, this is where it was all built. You know, this is where some of the early dishes and the fact that restaurants would become sort of an entertainment zone as opposed to just a place to go and get your food. I imagine during the Depression, a lot of these like old train carts or trailers became restaurants. Sort of were just kind of filling the niche to feed people, to just get food and people and coffee or whatever the case. But then later to sort of kind of grow into truly being these glamorous places. It may have even happened before the Depression, quite frankly, if you think about it. You know, I mean, sheesh, there's probably been restaurants in America since the colonial times, you know. So, I mean, it's just incredible to think of the modern restaurant systems, you know, nowadays, like with your POS and of course, you know, all the staff, whether they be your really high-end mixologist in your bar or your chic chef in the kitchen, you know, your one-of-a-kind maitre d', all these things that sort of make today's restaurants, you know, what they are, the hip approach, the maybe the murals and the great lighting and the super-duper bar and the DJ or the live music, whatever the case. Taking restaurants to that entertainment level again. Now, the United States is going through all kinds of stuff. I'm happy to say, now listen up to this, all of y'all. I believe it's official that the pandemic is now over. Yes, it is. And that says a lot about where we're going, what to expect in the next 10 years, you know, because we have a good 10 years to truly kind of live what we're doing and then expect massive changes again in the restaurant business. And we've talked about all this with the ghost kitchens, and we've talked about the plant-based meats coming in. We've talked about all these wild trends that are taking restaurants now and really what your guests expect, you know, what they're not necessarily always looking for like the super high end. They're maybe looking for something a little healthier, something a little more sustainable. You know, everyone wants to get on the sort of, well, is this grown locally? Is this, you know, is this just, you know, sustainable? Is it make sense to me now to eat and pay for this? And these are the things that are driving the restaurant business now. So for the next 10 years, I think we'll be on this trend, you know, and I think fusion is making a big comeback. A lot of people say to me, oh, fusion is confusion. And, you know, I did it for years. And I find that fusion food is exciting and fun because it really allows you to kind of reinvent things. And that, to me, is exciting. As I believe someone who kind of has more of a creative angle when it comes to the kitchen and my cooking, that's definitely what I appreciate about fusion. So I think that's making a big comeback. What will be fused? Well, then once again, that comes down to anybody doing it. I see a lot of great Mediterranean restaurants making a big splash these days, and this is the other part. Other than just being a big splash, is what people are willing to pay for these days. It seems like restaurants are getting expensive. Certainly, you know, I mean, obviously not all of them. There's restaurants that serve everybody, all right? You name it, whether they be a little food truck or a stall in a gas station or, you know, or some high-end restaurant with a members-only kind of thing going. But that's what we're seeing. We're seeing members-only restaurants now, you know, where, you know, people are paying outrageous amounts of money to be members and then outrageous money to eat there. I mean, it's pretty wild. But that's what we're seeing, and that is what's going on in modern times in the restaurants, what at one point might have been very similar to be able to eat in the Brown Derby or the Stork Club. You know, you had to be somebody. You had to be a movie star. You had to be Hollywood elite or New York's, media elite at that time, And those are the things that kind of made it exciting, that you could see these people in these dining rooms, that you could actually be near Errol Flynn or Marilyn Monroe, you know what I mean? And we could go down the line of different people. But today I think it's very similar, even though it's a different angle. The world has changed so much. It's a small place. We've seen the pandemic take its toll on us. And I mean everybody. I don't think anyone could say that I didn't have to deal with the pandemic. We all dealt with it in different ways and different levels, and we're glad to see it go. Now, will we have to deal with these things in the future? Maybe, maybe not. God willing, never again. But I'm happy to say it is over. Now there's a conflict in Europe that, it's going to affect, money, what people decide to spend on. I think food, and maybe it was the pandemic that sort of trained everybody to have a different approach to food and how they're willing to spend their money on food. Of course, now, that's one of my dogs making all that racket. But the facts are that, maybe it was the pandemic that kind of made all this ready for it. I mean, we're all ready for it because we've dealt with extremes, and maybe the conflict in Europe, the high gas prices, the sort of more, I don't know what the word is. I think everyone's working again. I think this kind of like, I don't feel like working yet kind of thing, or the massive, what they call it, everyone quit at the same time kind of thing, the shift, the job shift and the financial shift and everything. I think, we're kind of all getting back into it, but we've learned. And we've also learned there's things in our lives that we will not live without, and good food and fun times and living the moment is definitely one of the things we picked up during the pandemic, and now with the conflict in Europe and the prices of everything going beyond belief, we're ready. We are survivors. And once again, the podcast started during the pandemic and it continues, and we're happy. We've got a lot of new listeners. We've kind of changed the format somewhat by interviewing chefs and sharing their stories with all of you, and we hope that people are enjoying it. I certainly am, and I think the guests that we bring on are as well, because they're excited to share their stories. And some of my cooks who actually listen to the podcast, the other day had listened to Chef Randy in Colorado's episode, and they were just so blown away by some of his stories that I said to myself, well, this is definitely an angle for Survival of the Fittest at the Soup du Jour, for sure, to bring on guests so we can share their stories with all of you. So, once again, this is a food-driven podcast, and I like that angle because I'm a chef, it makes more sense. I certainly wouldn't want to be talking about, finances or even though I tend to, or painting homes, which are both awesome, but not what I do. So having a chef-driven podcast was the natural thing for me to do. And having the links I have to the chef world really means that we have some exciting guests coming on to the show. And perhaps even a little on-the-road stuff as well, which is going to make it a lot of fun for me and, of course, our production team here. So, and maybe not the dogs. Maybe, though. We never know with those dogs. The fact is, though, we're living some good times. I mean, they're hard times, and they're not perfect. We know there's a lot in the world to really pray for, and we're hoping for the best for our friends in the Ukraine and Russians as well, who are dealing with this as well as much as anyone else on this planet. So, we hope everybody can pull it together. And here in America, I think that what we need to keep doing is eating out, and chefs and restaurateurs keep pushing the envelope. I've been involved in some exciting projects in my life, and it seems that I continue to be involved with exciting projects, and there's more to come, always willing to share more. And, once again, I think by inviting all of you to be part of the success of this podcast is really what's going to make that possible. And I really need chefs out there that want to share their stories just to reach out on us on Instagram. That's Chef Roberto Trevino. And we're not picky. We want to hear the stories because they're all compelling and all wonderful. So let us know. We're here. You're always welcome on our podcast. This is Survival of the Fittest is the soup du jour. We're keeping it short today, and we'll see you soon. Take care.